man.
Hello, good morning, and happy Friday to you. I am here with Wayne Breitbarth, the man who came in nice and early all the way from Milwaukee to do a LinkedIn Live with us here today on LinkedIn. And what we're going to be talking about is the missing link in most companies' social media strategy. So Wayne, welcome.
Hey, Spencer.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for coming in early, right before the holiday. Deer hunting,
Yeah.
Wisconsin, big deer hunting thing, That's not me, but thanks for putting this together. I look forward to conversations with people like yourself who, we're both out there in the trenches and meeting with companies and I just want to give the listeners some insights, that hopefully they can get some stuff set for next year, sort of look at social media a little different as we meet almost the second decade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so tell me more about that. We were just riffing on how social media is maybe a little bit older than we would expect.
Yeah, LinkedIn's been around 17 years, so I just call it, it's almost 20 years. And what's amazing is two clients that I did this week still don't get the strategies around LinkedIn, or really most of the social media sites. They plug at stuff. Mm-hmm. They're into the activities of, and they really don't have a feel for what it does, mm-hmm. and then put a strategy around that. You run into that too?
I think so, and I think there's a big novelty aspect. I just want to say good morning to Nika and Patrick and Maximilian. Thanks for commenting on the post. We appreciate it. And just to give you a caveat, LinkedIn Live is pretty slow as far as trying to catch up. So if we don't address your comments that you're kind enough to leave, it takes about, in my experience, maybe 45 seconds for stuff to reconcile. So thanks, Chris. Chris says here that LinkedIn is bonkers when you go all in, and Nika says, good morning, Spencer and Wayne, nice to see you both. So yeah, it's really a pleasure to have Wayne here. And as Wayne was saying, what we've seen a lot of, especially I think in the spaces where people are just dipping their toe in the water because they're late adopters to LinkedIn, and this is usually the more established industries like legal, banking, financial services, it tends to be a novelty at first because we do something, but then after a while just go, well, this is just part of our work now. And how do we know if it works, and how do we measure it, and what's the ROI, which is that classic question we hear all the time. And as opposed to that, I think what we're going to address in the LinkedIn Live today is really just to frame up some context as to why this tool is so powerful. And if you're not using it on a regular basis, as opposed to ad hoc or just as a novelty again, why it might be something you should consider. So Chris says that video content is money, and he uses the money emoji or bitmoji or whatever it's called twice. So yeah, I think he's right. So talk to us more about that one.
Yeah, so I'm just going to frame it around these last couple of meetings that I had with these two companies, and they were in industries like electrician and scoreboards, and industrial, more in the industrial space, right? And what I found was that they were connecting. They all had 1,000 connections and people, so they were out there and they had profiles that looked like resumes, but not really resources to clients. But when I asked, I said, who are your clients? Have you looked for them on LinkedIn? And then have you found out what they need from you? And draw your profile and your connection strategy around that. And they sort of, crickets, right? I'm hearing crickets. And so they really hadn't thought that through. And I said, well, you're bringing a guy like me in to show you the techniques and the features, and there are lots of them on LinkedIn, as we know. And that part of the problem is it's almost like too much. But they hadn't really thought that through, and they've never even done a search where they went to find their clients. So we looked for purchasing people, facilities managers in Chicagoland, right, in the healthcare space. And like 950 people came up. And I said, tell me that's a good list. And they're drooling. And I said, but you've never done this before, didn't know how. I said, well, this is the start of the strategy. The start of the strategy, are they there? Mm-hmm. And then the next step is look at their profiles and see if it's true. And then what would you talk to them if you had a meeting? Mm-hmm. And then that's the kind of stuff that you should be populating in your profile and populating in your posts and stuff, right? But first connect with them, right? And so it's just that sort of the aha moment to be able to find that search engine and go, oh my gosh, if I could fill the room with these 1,000 people, it'd be the best day of my life, right? Mm-hmm. As a salesperson or as a business that wanted to grow.
Good point. So let's address a couple of the comments now that we've gone down that road a little bit. So we had a question come in from Maximilian. What's the best time of day for your live streaming in your experience? And I've done probably 24 LinkedIn Lives, but I don't still have enough data yet, Maximilian, when it comes to if it's better to do it early or late or mid-afternoon. But what Chris had mentioned here in the comments as well is 11 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern is the best based on his analytics. And I'm going to give a lot of credence to what he said because I was on calls basically all day yesterday. But what was interesting is between calls, I go on Twitter and I go to Twitter search just to see what's happening. And the big thing that popped in on Twitter search was Netflix. And this is at 9:30, I think, Central Time, that Netflix was down. I'm like, who's watching Netflix at 9:30 Central a.m. on a Thursday? But apparently people are watching videos across the board. So I'm going to agree with what Chris had said here. Happy Friday to Steven. Thanks for joining us. And then Chris had mentioned that obviously if your connections and followers are in the US, that 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern time frame that he's prescribing makes a lot of sense. So talk to me more a little bit about that. What you had alluded to this, where you said that when it comes to connections that coincide with job titles, meaning if I'm the CEO, I should try to connect with CEOs. We talked about this a little bit before, where I'm trying to sell into an organization. I want to connect with the people who can buy, but yet we can go up and down the organization so we can start having tangential conversations. Tell us a little bit about how that tactic ties into strategy.
That's a good one. I speak at a lot of Vistage groups, and Vistages are peer groups around the country, and so it's the CEO president space. And my suggestion to them is, listen, as your sales folks are calling on the people that they have to work with to try to get the deal, why don't you also reach out to the C-level executive, because you are one, and just introduce yourself through the invitation. Say, hey, I understand John is working with Sue trying to put together a project that we can help you guys on, and I just wanted to introduce myself in case we run into any problems or if you have any questions. And CEOs will connect with CEOs, right? And presidents will connect with presidents, and that's a way for the CEOs to go, I have a role. I have a role in this thing, and I think do the same thing even when you want to use LinkedIn for recruiting, right? Where and in that case, I'm suggesting that the CEO maybe send a note to a candidate that they're thinking of hiring and talk about being impressive. Right? You get an invitation, and let's say you're a vice president, and you get an invitation on your LinkedIn from the CEO of a company you're thinking of working, or maybe you've had a couple of interviews, and you go, that's pretty cool. I mean, this guy reached out to me and said he's really excited, heard my name, looked at my stuff, and is really excited about having him join. I mean, that's the kind of thing that you would think, you go, wow, nobody's doing that. So I think there's roles for the C-level executives. Part of it has to be, though, that the people that work for them might understand these tools a little better, have to say, here's the way it works. And if I could get you engaged at this level, I think we could move the ball down the field a little faster.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. So what Chris also had mentioned is that when you get caught up in, I'll just read what he said verbatim because I'm not doing a good job of articulating it. All that to say, don't get caught up in when, just do. So what he's really saying is try a bunch of stuff. At least if I'm paraphrasing what he says correctly, just try a bunch of stuff. Don't worry too much about the tactics necessarily, but just start doing the work and seeing what happens. And then Chris also said everyone on this live stream should have a podcast around your business and niche, and that's a really good point.
That is a good point.
So let's just break down what Wayne had said tactically again, which I think is really important. If you're working with those who are the top brass at a company, so that's the C-suite people, encourage them to connect with those that are their peers, right? So C-suite people at other companies with whom you'd like to get the work. But then also from a recruiting standpoint, especially because attraction and retention is so key for every company right now. Everybody's talent starved, right? If you have that president or whomever is trying to help with the recruiting, reach out to that candidate directly and say, if you'd like to have any questions about, the high level stuff, reach out to me and let me know if I can make myself available to you. I think that's a wonderful way of breaking down the barriers, because that electronic form of communication might be a lot more welcoming to somebody than sending a direct email or a phone call or seeing somebody in person. It's just a little more friendly, right?
Yeah, and it also shows that leader is in this space and not afraid of it, and just has a profile that marketing department did for them, and they don't know their password. That's what my usual joke is that I find a lot of C-level people, the profiles are all built out but done by marketing. And then when it comes to, what do I do with these notes? I don't know. Well, you just be yourself, right? Just be yourself. And that's the other thing this week that I found was when I brought these, let's say all these facility people up, and we clicked on the invite, connect, and then always send a note, right? You got 300 characters. What would you say to them? It's like, I don't know what to say. You do know what to say to them. You'd say it to them on the phone. You'd say it to them if you met them at a conference or a convention. It's the same thing. It's not Wayne Breitbarth coming up with the magic script. It's what would you say if you had 300 characters to introduce yourself, explain what you do, and how you might be able. You'd love to have a meeting to talk about the following. And the way to start was let's connect on LinkedIn.
Gotcha.
And that once you get people moving, they get the inertia in the right direction, and you script out a few of those. They go, oh, that's pretty easy. Why didn't somebody show me that? And it goes back to, that's one of those, that's a missing link. The missing link is they think there's something more to it than relationships that we've had our whole life. And we say, hi, how are you? What's up with your business? You know, and you if you ask enough questions, you find a way that you might be able to help.
Well, sorry, technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Difficulties. I don't know what.
Yeah,
Still in beta, man. You gotta love it. All right, let's see. All right.
Don't you love it?
Yeah. All right. So we are back with Mr. Wayne Breitbarth. We had to switch to our laptop camera, so apparently it's not gonna look quite as good, but we're back to keep going on this strategy, or better said, to address the missing link in most companies' social media strategies. So to talk a little bit more about when we build out strategy, Wayne, what this might look like for in real life, you know, as opposed to maybe in abstract terms.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I think is the aha situation is that you usually do need to have somebody like yourself or myself sort of open that to, oh, that's how the search works. Oh, that's our people. That's right. Because LinkedIn doesn't make it easy. Yeah, there's a search box at the top, but that's not how you get a nice list of facility managers in healthcare in Chicagoland, right?
Yes.
And it takes, I counted them, it takes 8 clicks to get to that list. That's too many for most people, unless they sat down with guys like you and I or read a book or whatever. So 17 years later, we still have to, you need guys like you and I to sort of open the door to, oh my goodness, that's what's been there for 17 years that I haven't tapped. And then once they see that, they know how to, they know what to do to get in front of people. If you give them just a little scripting and tell them some of the rules, like 300 characters for this, and in the thank you note you can put an attachment, and you know, so I think the missing link might be the knowledge. You know, and I keep going back to what is the missing. I think it is the fact that you don't understand what the platform can do for you and how it works enough so that you can say, okay, I'm a smart guy, I'm a smart gal. If the platform does this, then that's how we get to decision makers or candidates that we want to hire in a productive, more and efficient way to add to the traditional things we've been doing, or to replace some of the traditional things we're doing.
Okay. Cool. Anything else to add?
I don't think so.
All right.
Hope that helped everybody.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for tuning in on a Friday. We very much appreciate you, and look forward to your comments in the recording as well. So thanks for joining. Bye, everybody.